Toronto.
Oh, there's Jamie.
Yo, it's that freezing rain.
Ouais, ça.
He's on the side of the highway.
Ça sonne, né?
He can hear. Are you hitchhiking?
Dá pra check in, né?
Back.
Ah, ouais, il faut aller.
You want me to start?
Bye.
South Manhattan.
Ow.
Just move your lips when you start seeing James' glasses. Have you?
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Council and Committee of the Whole meeting for the Municipality of West Nipissing for January 17th, 2023. I'll call the meeting to order and begin with the land acknowledgement. The Municipality of West Nipissing respectfully acknowledges that we are located on the homelands of the Anishinaabe peoples on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Temagami, and Dokis First Nations covered by the Robinson-Huron Treaty. We honor and recognize their historic connection to the land and value their significant contributions in shaping and strengthening our communities. Open with declarations of pecuniary interest. Hearing none. We do not have an addendum for this evening's meeting, so we'll move on to 2.2 to adopt the agenda. Madame Duchamp.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that the agenda for the meeting of council held on January the 17th, 2023 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Or questions, comments first? All good? Thank you. Unanimous? Okay, item number 3, we have a thank you message. We would like to welcome Mr. Don Clendenning and Mr. Leo Mallet representing the West Nipissing Food Bank.
Thank you very much. But before we start, congratulations to all of you on your election. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to start just with a little bit of an intro and some explanation of the value and the need of the food bank in the district of West Nipissing. It's in 2019, when I started, we had a registration total of 731 households in the district. At that time, the population of West Nipissing was approximately 14,500. They give a number for 2016, but in 19 it moved on up a little bit. But those numbers represent the people that are registered at the food bank as approximately 5% of the population of West Nipissing. Over the years, the numbers increased an average of 10% or more per year. Now, in terms of actual people that come through the door, as versus the registered people, in 2019, there was 960 came through the door to collect food. 2021, we were up at 1,486. 2022, 2,602. Now, an average of, we open every first and third Wednesday of the month. So there's twice a month. The average in 2019 of people on those days was 80 households a day. on those days. 2021 was 83, 2022 went up to 108. And you can see the increase in the need for having a food bank. Now, some of the contributing factors, food pricing, we all know about that one. I track some of the items that we purchase for the people at the food bank, and some of the items have gone up over 100%, and that's since 2019 to 22. Housing costs, that's another one. And for 2023, the Canadian estimate for the increase of food pricing is between 5 to 7%. So you can see where this is all going. Nothing's going down. Now, at a food increase of 5 to 7%, I don't think anyone got a wage increase anywhere near that. So you can see where the difficulties coming in.
Comme vous savez, je veux dire en français qu'il y a beaucoup de personnes qui ont besoin de l'aide pour le manger. Il y a beaucoup de seniors aussi. Il y a beaucoup de gens qui pensent que c'est seulement pour les gens, puis les gens, mais c'est pas ça. Il y a des seniors, ils ont un salaire, une pension limitée, puis ils ont besoin de l'aide.
Okay. Now, the food bank, as we operate, basically we survive on donations. Okay. What I call the support structure for the food banks is our municipal council, local businesses, community individuals, schools, the MNR, the OPP, Rotary clubs, Knights of Columbus, and the churches. Together, they all give donations and help support us. Over the past number of years, past councils have continually supported the food bank, and that is a big help, very big help. This year, we've decided to do a little bit to try and help ourselves, and we're going to hold a fundraiser. Now, we've drawn upon the support structure that I just outlined, but some of the notables are City Council has supported us by allowing the use of the complex with the kitchen this year at no cost, which is a very big benefit. Other community partners have stepped up. TCM, Total Cabinet Modules, is covering the cost of the band, the Roadhouse, which is very big. And several others are donating items which we're going to use for door prizes and dance prizes, etc. So it looks like this will be a good success. So I thank you very much for your valued support. And in advance, thank you for your continued support.
Merci au conseil pour le support que vous avez fait dans le passé et maintenant, comme John l'a mentionné, pour le support, pour le loyer, le complexe, pour l'événement qu'on va faire, parce que les banques alimentaires ont besoin de beaucoup d'aide parce que, comme John le mentionnait, ça coûte cher pour acheter le manger. Comme il y en a bien qui les donations non perishable, mais il faut acheter de la viande, il faut acheter des patates, il faut acheter des oignons, des affaires. C'est pour ça que ils ont besoin d'argent. Ben, merci beaucoup. I thank you very, very much. I don't know we've done the agenda, but merci beaucoup pour avoir mis les plus beaux en l'économie. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Is there quelqu'un qui a des questions? Anyone has questions?
Do any of our members have any questions for presenters? Yes, Councillor Pellerin.
Oui, merci, Madame la maire. Juste curieux, la plupart des gens, c'est-tu des gens de ce jeu de force ou il y a des gens des environs?
Les gens d'environ, ça vient de partout, oui.
OK.
Ça vient de partout, oui. Oui, pas, je ne parle pas de North Bay, là.
Non, mais
Mais
comme
Field
Field Burner.
tout le monde. Pardon?
Comme Field Burner,
Oui.
il y a une famille qui... Oui?
Oui.
OK.
Des autres questions? Well, on behalf of the council, I would like to thank you both very much and to the rest of your volunteer team for the work that you do in the community. It cannot be understated how important It is, obviously, the clients that you are serving have a great need. And without the work that you did, there would be a big hole in their cupboards for them, and that means a lot. So on behalf of council, we're happy to support an organization such as yours that serves so many members of the community so well. So thank you very much for being here today, giving the information to us and to the community members, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Well, before I forget, thank you for putting us the brochure on your website for the coming event. So thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, under delegations and petitions, we have, we have a presentation from Monsieur Jacques Dupuis de Oshato. And I believe Madame Clerk has a presentation she'll be sharing with council through that. Mr. Dupuis, nice to have you with us this evening.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Maire, conseiller, conseillère. Ça me fait plaisir de présenter ce soir en attendant qu'elle poste la présentation. So I'm happy to present to you today. I want to provide a synopsis of what the home is all about for many of you that may or may not know of us. It's a brief overview. I usually have a lot to say, but somebody told me I have 10 minutes to talk, so I'll try to be expeditious. She's listening. So, next, Mel. So I will provide an overview of the home. I'll talk a bit about the municipal difference because that's important because there's a distinction between a municipal home and a private home and the importance that the municipality plays in homes. I'll go through challenges, only a few. We have a lot, but I'll talk about the big ones. And I'll touch on redevelopment that I think is something that is very near and dear to many of our hearts moving forward. So, one more. There it is. So, under the corporate structure of Oshato, and I call it a different name. I call it our campus of care, because that's really what we're all about. Because we range from social housing to support services to the long-term care. And when you look at our structure, from the box on the far left, which is Oshato, Oshato is really the 162 long-term care bed homes, and basically providing 24 hours nursing care for residents that need that type of care. And then if you see beside it, you have life lease, and we have 27 units, and those life lease are located off Crosella Road, and a bit inside the home near the hospital. So we have 27 there. So that structure, a life lease, is kind of a funny term because people are buying a piece of paper and a right to occupy their premise for a lifetime. And that life lease paper is transferable, sellable, and so on and so forth. So it's much like a condo corporation, other than it's sponsored by nonprofit organization like us that we manage the property on behalf of the owners. So it's a self-sustaining project with no cost to Oshato at all, other than being part of a campus of care. The next group of work that we do is a community support services. And we have quite a few catchment areas, from Sturgeon to River to Verner and so on and so forth. And we also have in Temagami a significant adult day program that we provide for the municipality of Temagami there. The majority of our seniors that reside in our apartment building receive services under this program. So we are limited to providing these services on our campus. And that was a deal that was struck many, many years ago, that the Oshato would not go into the community and compete against private sector or at the time the LINs and home and community. So we don't do that. So our community support services are focused on campus, other than the few little programs that we have in satellite areas. And at the far right, we have West Nipissing Nonprofit Housing Corporation. So we have basically two projects, one on our campus, which is our seniors apartment building. We have 175 apartments there. And we also handle the 92 units, which is 62 located at LA Court and 30 located at the Nest. So that is under the umbrella of this nonprofit organization. And under this nonprofit organization, I note at the bottom that it's a separate board of directors that manages the corporation, because in fact it is a separate corporation. So it's an entity that is supported by the municipality through its membership. operating on its own as a corporation and reporting to DSAB on many of the social services that we provide. So that's our campus of care in a nutshell. So drilling down a bit to Oshato. So the home was, it is a district home, as you see there, with 162 beds, and we're classified as a C home. And C home is because of the age of the home. And as you can see, we started in 1964 with 100 beds. So you're talking about a building that's almost 60 years old. And then the expansion took place in 1986, and that's where we added our 3 levels and expanded to 162 beds. So it's a district home, as you see there, and it's owned by the municipality of West Nipissing and the municipality of Temagami. And that was set way back in 1963 prior to the first accommodation of residents. The split is based on weighted assessment. So if you want to, for argument's sake, West Nipissing is responsible for 75% and Temagami is responsible for 25%. And the membership of the Board of Oshato is made up of 4 municipal councillors from this municipality, 1 from Temagami, and 2 appointed by the province of Ontario. Again, we primarily serve a Francophone population in a bilingual environment, and we are identified as a French language organization by the ministry. And we're one of the very few in our district. What I can say as well in terms of our campus of care and in terms of the housing piece, because of that Francophone component, we do attract a lot of seniors that want to reside on our campus. And we're not limited to accepting only those that are from West Nipissing. Because of the provincial funding, it's open to everybody in the province. So you see a lot of elderly or seniors that maybe have worked down south for 30 or more years and are coming back to reside in our apartments. And obviously you're seeing some from Francophone communities outside of West Nipissing, but we accommodate all of them. And we do have healthy waiting lists for that, for all those apartments. In terms of the overall budget, Oshato represents 15 million. The nonprofit housing represents 3.8 and 1.1 for the community support services. So for a budget of about $20 million overall. In terms, in terms of employees, we employ about 200 full-time staff. So as full-time, part-time, and casual pool. And as you can appreciate, 60% of the staff are really direct care. So between your PSW, RPNs, and RN, and because we are in the business of providing services and direct care to residents. So it goes without saying that our biggest area of staffing is there. Just to give you a flavor in terms of dollars and cents and a bit of an impact of the home on the community, our total salaries and benefits are $13 million annually. So when you factor in OMER's pension plan for retirees, the home represents a significant economic driver, not only in the short term, given the salaries that it has, but also in the long term with the very good pensions that the folks get. So you're talking about a significant, valuable asset in the community from that perspective only. Not just of the service we provide, but from that perspective only. So from a municipal difference, I wanted to talk about a few things there. So the municipal homes, long-term services are established based on an understanding of local needs and managed and delivered with a local environment and local involvement, giving residents in the community assurance that appropriate and accessible services are available within their community. And that's very important because it's important that the municipality plays a role in that. And they are invested in that. They want to provide care for the seniors of the community here and not having to go outside or having to go to other operators. So in the current health environment, the emphasis is on efficiency of the health service delivery. So municipal homes in particular, like ours, were models of integration and collaboration. So again, when I talk about the collaboration, the campus and so on, from the housing to the nursing and everything in between, that is a model that is well viewed, well known in the province. And I can tell you that a lot of them have actually come to see our premises, see what we're all about and what we have. The other uniqueness we have, which is very important, we have a link to the hospital. And so that link to the hospital, to the medical service, to access to ER, access to blood work and so on, well, that is good for all the residents of the apartments and so on, which they can internally get to those spaces. So that makes our campus a little bit more an envy for many people when you when you start bringing other health services provider with it. And I'll talk a bit about that a little bit more when I deal with the redevelopment and the potential there. So the willingness of municipality to invest in long-term care and be actively involved in operation makes a difference for seniors in our communities. Because that really means that the care is closer to home. So they don't have to go outside and travel far away. The care is for everyone. The municipal difference in the sector is very well known for the high quality of care. Why? Because profits are not given to shareholders. Profits for municipal homes are reinvested in salaries, benefits, and the care of the residents. So although in some of the envelopes, like the accommodation envelope, it provides for a piece of profits for many homes, it doesn't for us. It provides for an investment back in our staff and our care. I talked about the innovative and integrated care for seniors. That's our campus of care. It certainly builds strong communities. And strong communities is not only your community as a whole, but it's also the community that you take care of within the campus of care for all your seniors and with their varying needs. And municipalities always carried a strong voice for seniors. And that's been quite effective through AMO and other benefits. And I talked about the good jobs and the benefits. In terms of challenges, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to focus a little bit more on staffing, because as I talked about, that's where we deliver the hands-on care, and that's where we have the most significant challenges. Now, let me just point out that Oshato is not unique to having staffing challenges. I mean, you all read that when COVID started, it certainly had its impact in terms of staff retiring earlier, staff working doubles, getting and going to other places and so on. So long-term care, like hospitals and like home and community, we are all struggling for staff. And it's just a question of time that colleges and universities starts to graduate more. There's a big recruitment process, which I'll talk about, but they start to graduate more and put more in the system. So in my opinion, I think this is something that's going to be a 3 to 5 year period until the home is able to operate with the proper staffing. And the proper staffing I talk about is not the full-time staffing. We have enough complement there. It's on our part-time staffing that we have lost a lot of complement. So before I get into a little bit more of staffing, I want to talk a little bit about context, because the residents in our home, what we're noticing, they're coming here in the home more and more vulnerable, senior, frailer, and they're coming with the home with a lot more behaviors. As you get older and 85, you can expect all those things to be prevalent. So that is coming to our homes. That results in seniors with greatest needs and the ones being admitted to long-term care have a greater, higher acuity than in the past 10 years. And 6 out of 10 residents suffer from some form of dementia, and that number is growing at about 2.5 per year. Even more troubling is the huge and growing group of residents with aggressive behaviors. On average, 46% of residents exhibit aggressive behaviors, and about 11% are considered severely aggressive. So as you can appreciate, it becomes a little bit more difficult for staff to provide activities of daily living and as well as dealing with behaviors. Now, we have training and education and so on for those pieces, but a lot more, I think, can be done. So these behaviors pose a huge risk to resident safety and well-being, both for those suffering from them and those around them, including residents, staff, and visitors. It can't be overstated how heavy care needs our residents are, both physical and mental health needs. Research evidence clearly shows that more staff is needed for better quality of care and to better manage these behaviors. So currently, we provide 3.4 hours of care per day per resident. And based on the government's goal of 4 hours of care per resident per day and the committed funding, the plan is to achieve this by 2025. Now, when you look at the 3.4 versus 4 hours of care, that 0.6 might not be a big number in terms of the 0.6. But let me tell you, it represents 35,000 hours of resident care that you could provide in a year. And that will mean that when we get to 4, we can add 15 more staff per day under that ratio. So clearly a big benefit moving forward. And I talked about the difficulty in hiring bilingual support workers as school enrollment has declined. And that is prevalent everywhere. We are a bilingual home. We want to ensure that we have bilingual staff as much as we can. And we have to draw on local colleges, and we will work closely with Collège Boréal to recruit these students in and to come and work at our home. So unfortunately, as we, like I said, the recruiting of current worker is very difficult. And then you bring into the fact that the current workers, and let's not hide it, I've been working a lot of overtime and working long hours, and that has brought us along some problems, and now you create a vicious circle. So you got the lack of recruitment in colleges flowing to the home. You've got people retiring and moving on, and then you have a core group that has to be left to manage the home as best as they can. Now, I can tell you that in normal circumstances, it's not an issue. The staffing complement is good, but we're not living in normal circumstances. When you have COVIDs, outbreaks, and so on, that's where it has significant impact on your staff. Because in our case, if a staff has COVID, they have to stay home for 10 days, and you lose the staff for 10 days, and so on and so forth. So whether it's home acquired or community acquired. So solutions. So really, there's no magic solution. There's a variety of measures that we can put in place, and some of them have been put in place. Like I talk about offering support for training and skills upgrade. So I think there are many people out there that could benefit from these type of programs. And I can tell you that the ministry has listened to our associations in terms of developing those people and have provided dollars to back that up from tuition and so on and so forth. So it's getting better and so on. Targeting incentives to attract workers to our home. You're talking about monetary incentives. And we do that to bring them in. Allowing on-the-job training for PSW. That is something that we're working on with the government and to try to provide, to prepare the actual curriculum to be able to do that while taking education courses and so on. Like I talked, work closely with local colleges to recruit to the profession, and a recruitment campaign by the home to attract bilinguals to our profession. Now, I can tell you that the provincial government plays a role in here as well. And that's to develop integrated health human strategies in close collaboration with residents, families, frontline colleges, and so on and so forth. So they have to step up. They have to attract and create programs that will bring RNs, RPNs, and PSW to the profession, and not just for long-term care, but the whole health sector in general. Now, so I talked about more direct care and so on and so forth. So we could go to the next slide now. I talked about this, the next one. So what have we done? So in 2022, we added 6 full-time personal support workers, 4 full-time registered nurse, practical nurse, and 1 full-time position, but the full-time position is, the RPN, no, the full-time position is a BSO specialty nurse. So we added there 11 staff in 2022. In 2023, starting this year, we added another 6 full-time personal support workers. So when you couple all that, we grew our staff by 25% in 2 years, which is great. So, but the goal is, again, by 2025, that's going to grow probably another further 25, adding 50% to the overall pool, which is now you're in a better position to offer care to our residents. But what happened in creating those full-time positions, we drained our full-time pool. Or part-time pool, sorry. So you drain your part-time pool. So when you have to backfill your full-time, you don't have the part-time to help out in times of sickness, outbreaks, and so on and so forth, and even summer holidays. So that's the part that we are actively working on, and we need to recruit to get people in. Redevelopment. You doing good on time, Mel?
I'm not the boss of
Oh, sorry.
This is very important information, please.
So redevelopment. So back in 2007, the ministry announced through an renewal strategy that every home had to redevelop by 2025 if you're a category B, C, or D home. So we are now close to 2025, and there's been significant delays as a result of COVID. As you know, interest rates have increased tremendously. Construction costs have increased tremendously, and lack of labor force is non-existent. So it's making the redevelopment everywhere slow down. So that date of 2025, that drop that date they called it, will not exist. That will be pushed a little bit further down because nobody has moved on redevelopment. So the main purpose of the new bill was to improve quality of life for our residents, with much greater size room, enhanced dining rooms, and creating a more home-like environment so they have a better experience in terms of their life and so forth. So what are the changes in designs? Basically is that now you're moving away from an institution to a more home-like environment. So you'll see each resident area will be rooms of 16. So all the 16 will have their own dining room, own sitting area, and so on and so forth. So it creates a little bit more of a home-like environment as opposed to having 50, 60 in one area. It increased the requirement for therapy space, and that's important, to a minimum of one per floor, per resident area. So now it is certainly there will have to be an investment in staff, because instead of having one therapy for the whole home, you have one in each of the resident areas. So you're looking at probably 4 areas and so on. The dining space, again, they're increased to create a better environment for them. The big one is larger rooms for all types. And I have private and basic as information, but I can tell you that the new home design will probably lean towards all private rooms for many reasons. One of the big one is for infection control, outbreak management, because when you have an outbreak, unfortunately, if a resident in one room is sick and the other one isn't, but because they're in the same room, they both have to isolate for that same period. So now you're removing that piece, so he does need to isolate. And number one, if somebody is sick in one room, there's less risk of spread of any kind of viruses and so on. LEED standards design and so on, and increased fire protection, which is sprinklers throughout. As you can appreciate, a building that is 60 years old on the one side and almost 40 on the other didn't have a sprinkler system in all rooms and so on. So there's a little site map of the proposed new development. And you can see all the colors. So on the map itself, from the pink color is the Community Health Center, located at the corner of Michaud and Ethel. On the yellow side, on the yellow Ethel Street, moving a little bit more eastward, is the Outland Ambulance Station. And I'll skip over the blue area for now, but if you go to the shaded area is the existing home. And then we'll move back up to the blue area, which is the proposed site of the new 162-bed facility. And as you can see, the entrance for the new home will now be coming from Ethel Street, as opposed to Michaud Street in terms of the design. So the home will need to acquire land that is owned by the municipality between the Community Health Center, the Land Ambulance Station, and a little bit behind. The reason the design or the land that we had before didn't accommodate our existing, the original plan we had, is because of the footprint of the home is a little bit bigger, because you're going all private rooms, makes it a little bit bigger. And the other piece is the building, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but the building codes require so many parking spots. So we didn't have enough room to do all the parking spots. That's why we had to redesign and create that space. So I draw your attention a little bit lower. There's something in green. Now in green, that is a proposed new building under our affordable housing model, which is a 45 apartment building for seniors housing. So that is under the West Nipissing Nonprofit Housing Corporation piece, but because it's part of the campus, I think it's important. So what we have there is we have the building has been designed, the tender has been prepared, the zoning is not an issue. The quantity surveyors have been costed, so we know the estimate of what costs are going to be. And our application right now is sitting with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So we are optimistic that this project will move forward, and if it does, it will certainly complete the southern piece of the property. So we will not have any more room to do anything else after we build this particular building. So if that's okay, you can stay at that slide. So when you look at the area, the whole area, and you factor in the hospital, what West Nipissing has, and I said this before and I'll say it, it's the envy of many in the province, because now you have your local hospital, your land ambulance, your CHC, a new home, the existing building of Oshato, We have big plans to have an assisted living model, which is for residents that are in between independent living apartments and the home. And there's a significant demand for that. So you create that and then and couple that with your housing. So in one big square area in North Nipissing, you have all the health services that anybody will require. So that's just something that is always been said to me when people come and visit our area and what we're all about. The wish dream would be to link the new home to the CHC, the Community Health Center, to link it back to the old Chateau so that now you're all interconnected internally. That's the big wish. But the big wish comes with dollars, and we'll see what happens when we get to that point. So this is all beautiful and so on and so forth. And it brings me to the financial side of the whole thing. So the estimate, the current estimate to build the new home is $120 million. 10 years ago, it was $40 million. So that's how much costs have escalated from 10 years ago. That's because of trades as well. There's a lack of supply of trades and so on, so it costs that some more. So when the board received that information, based on the current funding of the provincial government at the time, they decided, no, we can't move forward. It's cost prohibitive, and it wouldn't be fair to encumber our stakeholders with that kind of money, and so on and so forth. So, but what I can tell you though is that there is some good news. The government did come up with a program about a month ago, increasing they call it the levy per bed in terms of the funding, 150%. That is huge. So those that have applications in the ministry ready for redevelopment will have access to new funding, and that will help tremendously. I'm confident that we're going to have, even though our application was not in at the time, I'm confident that those kind of fundings are going to be there, and it's going to help probably move this project along. But that'll be something that the board will be looking at, the board of Oshato will be looking at quite keenly in the next few months and so on. So, and we'll keep you posted on that. On that, Madam Mayor, that concludes the short notes version of what we're all about.
Thank you very much. I'm sure, I know I have a couple of questions. I'll wait till the end, but I'm sure that other members of council will have some questions as well. So I'd like to open the floor to our members. I am Madame Tessier.
Yes. When you, the overall budget, you indicate the Oshato 15 million, nonprofit housing 3.8 million, and the community support services 1.1. Can you elaborate on the community support services, what that entails?
Absolutely. So on our campus, in terms of seniors apartment buildings, we have 4 of them. With our residents there's about a group of about, don't hold me exactly to the numbers, but we're looking at about 60, 70 residents receive support services, which are light in nature, like light housekeeping, laundry, security check, and so on. Then there's another category called assisted living for high-risk seniors. So we have 13 seniors on that program. So those are the ones that require help with their activities of daily living. So and medication monitoring. We can administer medication, but we can certainly monitor that they're taking it. So on those residents, the 13, they receive visits 3 times a day, 7 days a week, and so on and so forth. The catchment, in terms of the other little project, River Valley, we have Les Mains Ouvertes, okay, that they're providing great services there to help out in, they clean some roads, some driveways, they help out with seniors, they have a meals program, and so on and so forth. And then we have transportation, which is in that budget. So we have a parabus that is available to all of the community of West Nipissing for those who are non-ambulance and require help to go to medical appointments, whether it's North Bay or Sudbury. So.
Thank you. Other questions? I do have a couple of questions. With the new development, with the new development, will there be an increase in the number of units to what is already available, or is that is the proposal to keep the number number of units the same for the Chateau?
So the board did have discussions on expanding the size of the home to potentially go to 196 residents as opposed to 162. But we couldn't do it because of we can only go 3 levels high.
Okay,
And our footprint is so much. That's number one. Number two, I think you have to keep in mind that the more the room, the more the staff that you need to service that. So right now, there is such a difficulty in staffing that it would be even more difficult if you have a 186-bed facility.
okay.
So
And
those are the few things.
the blue rectangle there that's not filled in, does that represent an outdoor space or courtyard for the residents?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's just what I wondered there. It is a really nice looking ideas that you've got put forward there. Those are the questions I had. Any other questions from our council members this evening?
So just,
Councilor Rivar?
yeah, through you, Madam Chair, the old building, what exactly is the plan for?
Okay, so I talked about the assisted living model. So what it is that currently we have on 4 resident area, we have dining rooms, we have a main kitchen and a main laundry facility. So when you move to a new facility, it's all going to have their own new kitchen and so on and so forth. So to make use of that, that's where we're going to go into an affordable housing, assisted living model. So what we're going to do is, like, in terms of room size, just as an example, you almost have to take 2 rooms to create one. Okay, so you create like a little living suite where it has a separate bedroom and a nice sitting area for a kitchen, for a living room and so on, with a small dinette. Not necessarily for full-fledged dining, but a small dinette, so that they can have something in their room if they wish, or they would come to the dining room and so on. So it's really to take advantage of an existing asset, to take advantage of a need in the community, because there's a significant gap. And what else I can tell you is that many of our residents in our home, I can probably say quite conservatively, 15 to 20 of them probably don't belong in our home. They belong in a model like that they need, all they need is that little bit of help so that they can stay living independently at home. So that creates that piece of model. So that model, we work with the government of Ontario, so Ontario Health now, used to be the old LHINs, on those programs. So we've already had preliminary discussions on that model, and they view that very favorably and so on. So.
Awesome, thanks.
I'm sorry, I do have one more question. In regards to the life lease portion of the campus of care, so there's 27 units currently.
Yep.
And those units, I imagine, provide a good revenue stream for the home. Is there any plans to expand that model? Like there must be a waiting list for that as well, I would imagine.
Okay, so on that particular model, I'll correct you, it is not a money grabbing type of or money generator, let's put it that way. All it is that through an agreement with the ministry, we're we're sponsors. So we become sponsors of that thing.
Okay.
But as sponsors, you have to ensure that they are self-sustaining. So whatever the costs are to build at the time, to buy and so on, it was covered by them, and any condo fee, any fees, any taxes and so on is paid by them.
Okay.
So the only reward that we get doing so, we get a management fee to do so, and also we make use of our existing maintenance and housekeeping staff to go do work in that area. And we do not have room to do any more of those either. And we are such in high demand, you're absolutely
I was
right.
going to say I know there's a great demand for those because they're very nice units, and they just the stability of being like a condo or an ownership model. It's quite attractive to people who want to get out of a single detached home and have a lifestyle within that campus of care, but still live independently. So it's unfortunate because I'm sure if you built 100 of them today, you could have 100 of them rented.
Well, when we built our last 4 back in 2010, we had to do a lottery for the 4 to get
Great. Well, thank you so much. Any other questions before I close this portion of the meeting from our council members? Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today, Monsieur Dupuis. We truly appreciate it. The Chateau is a huge asset in the community, as you say, both as an economic driver and in providing services for our seniors in their own community, in their own language. So it's, I know that our council will be working very closely with you over the next 4 years to move forward on the development, to make sure that these services are available in our community for many, many years to come. So thank you for your time this evening. Okay, we'll move on to item 4.2, which is receive a petition. We have received a petition from members of the public in regards to a request for a stoplight at the intersection of Levac Road and Highway 17. The full petition has been included in your package, so just let it be shown that we have received the petition. As per our policy, it will go on for discussion at the next Public Works Committee of the whole meeting in February. I don't need to put a vote. Okay, we'll now move on to Committee of the Whole portion of the meeting. And first at item 5.1, we have item for the Planning Committee. So with that, I will pass it to the chair, Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the staff report, its subject is the Bill 23 More Homes Build Faster Act. I will pass it to Melanie, to provide an explanation of recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you for reading this lengthy report. As many of you may be aware, and there's been a lot of stuff in the news lately with regard to changes under Bill 23, and it does cover a variety of legislation, not just the Planning Act, but a variety of pieces of legislation are affected by this bill, with the main objective by the province of ensuring that, of addressing the homelessness problem that everyone in the province is aware of. So in late fall of last year, a bill was introduced in the province and then given royal assent in fairly quick succession to a bunch of changes to the Planning Act, the Conservation Authorities Act, and a variety of other acts, the Development Charges Act, all with a view of reducing some of the perceived impediments to development. So in West Nipissing, we are incredibly fortunate that we have a lot of development and not a whole lot of impediments, because a lot of these changes won't have a serious impact on us, I don't believe, at least not at this point in time, given our current development structure. But there are a number of many municipalities in the province that have grave concerns with regard to these changes, primarily because a lot of them will severely impact the revenue stream of these municipalities. In West Nipissing, we don't rely on our development charges to sustain the infrastructure, and whether that's wise or not, but we don't. But many municipalities rely on development charges because in the motto is development funds development. So if you want to make a subdivision, you have to pay a hefty development charge to the municipality, because the municipality, every time it does upgrades, in more population means more roads, more streetlights, more schools, more hospitals, more. So these development charges go into the public coffers to not necessarily offset that specific development, but to offset development as a whole. So long story short, there's going to be a very shortfall in a lot of communities with these development charges having been pulled back on a lot of projects. So what is perceived to remove an impediment from developers at the front end will, according to most analysts, is going to add a tax burden to municipalities on the back end, because instead of development funding development, what's going to happen is that a lot of development will now have to be borne by the tax levy, by the general taxpayer as a whole. So that's just one of the changes. For West Nipissing, and I won't bore you with I won't go through all of this report because it is lengthy and it does have a number of points which aren't necessarily directly impacting West Nipissing, but there are some subtle changes that are going to have an effect and we will see. One change is that the province is encouraging increased density in its urban areas. So now we have zoning bylaws that say you can have, one house or two houses, whatever the zoning is on a specific property. The province has removed that and said that in urban cores, you can have up to 3 units on any property in an urban area. So, any house downtown can have an apartment in the basement and they can have also an apartment over the garage or a standalone second dwelling if there's space permits. That said, you still have to meet the normal lot coverage abilities, setbacks, and all that kind of thing. But the intention is to increase density in urban areas and to allow people more flexibility with their properties. And this is something that municipalities don't have a choice in. This is something that, regardless of what your zoning bylaw says now, this is what it is. And that's something that we will have to look at. And it does, and I can see Sean's eyes, because it does create for municipalities with aging infrastructure, like, everybody who now had 1 house in a property can have 3. That's an additional burden on our water systems and our sewage supply systems. And it's kind of a ripple effect that, it sounds like a really good idea at the outset. And when you drill it down, you think, again, it's something that municipalities are going to have to bear at the, at the taxpayer level. Site plan control, which is something, again, we don't use an awful lot in West Nipissing, but site plan control is a tool that municipalities have always enjoyed to ensure that, natural heritage features and other things are protected and are to ensure that, a property is developed in a way that is going to be, whether it's a shoreline buffer, whether it's, staying away from a certain feature on the property back, that has been removed from residential development. So we will no longer be able to impose impose site plan control on residential development. Again, it's intended to reduce impediments to development, but it does create where we have areas that we know that, may be sensitive, we won't have the ability to say, no, we want you to enter into a site plan control agreement, which will say, you have to be 15 meters back from that specific feature or whatever it is. So application fees, it's not a problem here, but I understand that in other municipalities, there are long wait times for applications to be processed. And the province has said, if you don't get things processed in a timely fashion, you have to start refunding your application fees. So for us, I don't see that being an issue. We've never not put an application through in a timely fashion, but some municipalities are, have indicated that in order to put things forward, they're going to have to, drastically increase their staffing complement in order to not be having to give people's money back in order to meet timelines. The role of the Conservation Authority has been scaled back, and I can't speak a lot to that because we don't have Conservation Authority oversight in our watershed here. North Bay, we kind of sandwich between North Bay and Sudbury, and we don't, unfortunately, have the support of the Conservation Authority to assist us in managing our watershed, which is, I guess, now we won't get that because the Conservation Authority's role has been pulled back in many areas. I've provided a few of the pieces of correspondence that I've received from other municipalities, and that's just a handful because I am getting support resolutions on almost a daily basis. As well as you'll see there's correspondence included that relates to AMO's position, which is the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. And the general concern that's being raised is that a lot of these changes were very quick and there was not an awful lot of consultation. And there's a lot of concern at the municipal level that, once again, the province is downloading something on us where we're going to have to figure out how to fund it. And that's concerning for many municipalities. Like I said, we're really, really lucky here in West Nipissing that a lot of these changes won't have a heavy impact today, but they do have an effect going forward where if we were to consider development charges, well, now we might not have that same avenue that we would have had, in the past. Would that we wanted to ask the Conservation Authority to, perhaps take in our watershed. Now we don't have that option. So, right now I'm bringing this to your attention more as an information piece, because we really don't know where this legislation is going to lead us. We're, like most municipalities, had it kind of given to us like, oh, here, look at this. We don't even have regulations for a lot of the changes. They've removed, for example, the right of public meetings for subdivisions. So now a person who is going to be maybe next door to 100 new houses, municipalities are no longer required to hold a public meeting. And that's just strange. Because that's always been something that is, the public's had a right to attend public meetings, ask questions, and inform themselves of what's going to be happening, next door to them or in their community. We don't know how that's going to, the regulations for how we're supposed to do that hasn't been written yet, so I can't provide a lot of information. Third-party appeals, in the past, if you weren't happy with the decision of the municipality on a severance application or a minor variance that might have been made, you had the opportunity to appeal that to the Ontario Land Tribunal or OMB in the past. You don't have that anymore. That's been taken away. Only certain public bodies can make appeals. So if your neighbor decides he's going to split his lot in, 3 pieces and he's going to, I don't know, do something with it that you may feel has, you have a concern with, that right of appeal has been removed, which is, again, really concerning for municipalities because, planning is supposed to be an open and, transparent kind of process where, the changes to the legislation have removed some of the tools that the members of the public and municipalities had in order to move these applications forward. And like I said, as we go through, as the changes become more clear and we get a better grip on how it's going to roll out, I'll probably be back with more information. Those of you who will be sitting on the Planning Advisory Committee and the Committee of Adjustment over the next 4 years will have a more front row view as we roll this out. But I am just, like I said, bringing this as an information piece. If you've heard stuff in the news, and I'm sure Councillor Rivard is more aware of it than, as he, has a front row seat to this kind of stuff as well. But, it is concerning that municipalities are being asked to, we're having tools taken away from us, potential funding sources taken away from us, and not that the impetus or the intentions of the legislation are bad. There's just a lot of concern at the municipal level that perhaps the consultation process in these changes could have been a little bit more open and perhaps give municipalities an opportunity to voice their opinions on how they're going to address the challenges by the new legislation. But anyways, I will, if you have any questions, but I hope that I've provided a really quick, fast-talking overview.
So if anybody has any questions and comments, I'll open the floor to those. Councillor Rivard.
Through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, you pretty much touched up on everything and talked about the potential causes or effects this may have on a municipal budget or on residents in the municipality, but there's all sorts of things that do come up. The main one for me was the no public consultation for any new subdivisions. That seems a little quick to move forward with, so that one scares me a little bit. And the no provincial support and downloading costs to municipalities, I know that's something that municipalities have been dealing with throughout the years, and this is another example of that, where it may be difficult to fund infrastructure projects, things like that. And so as she mentioned, it may also hurt the tax base. And when you mention conservation authorities, I'm gonna stay a little clear here there, but I know we don't have, conservation authorities, I have jurisdiction here, but conservation authorities do not have jurisdiction over the watershed here in West Nipissing. But Sudbury and North Bay being so close and us having ties with them, in many ways, it could potentially present a trickle-down effect, in my opinion, down the line. If it's costing those cities more money, it could, in the end, hurt West Nipissing as well. But that's all I have to say about that.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Yes, Nate?
I had a couple of questions first, and you may have the answers or you may not have the answers. When you talked about the encouraging density within the urban boundaries, when you talk about urban properties, you're talking about fully serviced properties that are serviced with, like, so Cache Bay would be included. So where we have water and sewer infrastructure, those are the properties that could have up to 3.
Typically, the way it's defined is we have in our official plan, and if you've looked at the schedules, there's sections that are called urban service boundaries.
Okay.
So in those sections, and yes, that would be the body of Cache Bay, Field, Verner, Sturgeon Falls, in those sections. And typically they are the areas. There's a few properties that may only have partial servicing, but typically they are your serviced urban areas.
Okay, and you talked about the impact of that on the existing infrastructure and how that might impact, what we have going on. I would see there, I saw there that they are also only asking for 1 parking space per residential unit, which oftentimes in this day and age is a little underserviced. And I would suppose that those parking issues would also create other issues when we talk about snow removal and people have nowhere to park, and our streets then become parking lots. So we are providing, as a municipality, providing parking spaces for residents through our infrastructure dollars.
That is correct.
Okay. I also, I don't like in the restricting third-party appeals or the restricting people's ability to comment on new subdivisions. I think the biggest takeaway for me on this issue is the complete lack of consultation by the provincial government on issues that affect our residents, affect our operations as a corporation, and what the costs are going to be. We don't know what that's going to look like, but the fact that the legislation was pushed through so quickly without any consultation with municipalities, is there value in us adding our voice to the other voices at the table?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that any voice is a good voice. A lot of municipalities have asked for support, and I think that I hope that the more noise that municipalities make will, perhaps cause some sober second thinking. I don't know if I'm going to bank on it, but I would hope.
And just one more thing on the conservation authorities that we spoke of. Again, we're not covered by the conservation authority as far as their jurisdiction with our waterways, but I would imagine that degradation of environmental protections, we all share the same water sources. We live on the same lake as North Bay, so when you start to get into pulling back environmental protections, we may not be affected directly by the lack of service or lack of authority by conservation authorities that they're proposing, but it could have an impact on our waterways, on our fisheries, and on the lake that provides a lot for us as far as tourism and enjoyment in our own municipality. I would personally like to see our voice added to that, but I don't know what the process would be to do that. So,
through you, Madam Chair, we can, I can draft a resolution for next meeting to be brought forward. We'll go through a lot of these resolutions that have been provided and try to touch on the matters that you mentioned and the ones that are most important. Obviously, everything is important. We're all, municipalities in Ontario and, what mayor, every municipality is grappling with these costs of aging infrastructure and density issues and whatnot. And like you had mentioned, all of the things that you're being suddenly thrust upon us, everybody's has to deal with it, to a lesser or greater extent. So I will bring something to the next meeting and try to touch on everything that's been said tonight, and we'll add it to the pile and send it off to the province.
I'll back over to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any more questions or comments? If I could pass the chair back to you, Madam Mayor, to
Thank you very
continue
much.
with the.
Thank you, everybody. Next, we have matters under the Public Works Committee, and so for that, I'll pass it to our chair, Councillor Gagné.
Much, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Alors, ce soir, on a notre superviseur qui va nous présenter le processus puis les logistiques au sujet du déneigement pour nos chemins. Alors, tonight we'll have our Manager of Public Works, Monsieur Sean Mignard, to explain to us the process and logistics of winter road maintenance for the municipality of West Nipissing. So, I'll be you, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, councillors, Madam Mayor. Nice to see you all in person. So as the chair mentioned, I did prepare an overview of our winter maintenance operations. I'll try not to ramble on too much, but you did get a brief, I believe, in your agenda packages. So it should be easy for everyone to follow. So starting off, the Public Works goal for the municipality of West Nipissing is to provide a consistent and sustainable level of service to our residents, ensuring public safety by meeting or exceeding the current minimum maintenance standards. Sorry. So first off, under the Municipal Act, Ontario Regulation 23902, minimum maintenance standards for municipal highways. So under those standards, we have a duty to patrol. So our area subforemans or designate need to patrol as per the standard. So for example, on a class 4 roadway, it's once every 14 days, provided that we don't see any weather patterns approaching, right? So the closer the weather patterns, the more frequent patrolling. Class 5 roadways every 30 days. So if it's sunny for 30 days, they don't have to patrol for that 30 days. Weather monitoring, so October 1st to April 30th, the standards say that we need to monitor the current forecast to occur, the current forecast and then the forecast to occur in the next 24 hours, 3 times per calendar day. And our area subformans are monitoring and also documenting weather. We need to monitor snow accumulation and also monitor ice formation or any approaching weather patterns that would promote ice formation. As for snow accumulation, so on a class 4 roadway, which the municipality doesn't have very many class 4 roads, we're predominantly class 5 and even a lot of class 6 roadways. Class 6 roadways have no standard. We do maintain them as a class 5 standard. So for the class 4s, if I can, an example would be like a Dutrazac Road, John Street, Leclerc-Levac roads, those heavier trafficked areas, they would be class 4s, and all our others are class 5s or class 6s. So on a class 4 roadway, when there's an accumulation of 8 centimeters, that's the trigger, and the clock starts. So we have 24 hours to bring that road back down to below that 8 centimeters. That's the standard. On a class 5 roadway, the trigger is 10 centimeters, and we have on a class 4 roadway, 8 centimeters, we have 16 hours to bring it back down to below 8. On a class 5 roadway, it's 10 centimeters, and we have 24 hours to bring it back down to below 10 centimeters. Anything in between, the road is deemed to be in a state of repair. Class 6, no standard. Bike lanes, we were starting to have a few kind of multi-use lanes so they for on a class 4 roadway, the trigger is 8 centimeters, but we have 24 hours, not the 16. That's where I got them mixed up. And on a bike lane on a class 5 roadway, 10 centimeter accumulation, 24-hour response. Sidewalks, less than or equal to 8 centimeters, and we have 48 hours to respond. When we deploy for snow accumulation, all troops go out. And so the sidewalks are maintained, right? And the higher classification roads are typically done first. I'll touch on how we, strategically do certain roads first and certain roads, there's always a first road and there's a last road. So I'll touch a little bit on that later. Ice formation. So we treat icy roadways, parking lots, sidewalks with abrasives in West Nipissing with winter sand, 95% sand with a 5% salt mixture. That's our abrasives that we use. So for ice formation on a class 4 roadway, we have to be within 12 hours, we have to treat it with abrasives after knowing of the icy condition. So we, geographically we're spread out. So, it could be that in River Valley, or we got a little bit of a flash rain and we won't be aware. So we're banking on the public to notify us. It's physically impossible for the patrolman to patrol 535 kilometers of road, right, at one time. So on the class 5 road is 16 hours. We had a typo there. Sidewalks for icy conditions is within 48 hours. And our parking lots are done at the time of deployment. So same as our deployment. I did receive a question for a significant weather event and what that kind of means. So what that allows the municipality is it allows us to kind of stretch the clock per se. So let's say we're just getting hit by snow. So and the accumulation hits our 10 centimeter trigger, but it keeps going and we deploy and it just keeps going behind us. And so if we declare a significant weather event, it allows us to notify our residents to kind of time out on the driving. We're not going to meet the standard. We can't, right? With the resources we have, with the significant accumulation that we're seeing, there's no way that we're going to meet the standard. So we are under a significant weather event. Please be cautious if you have to go out on the roads. So it's an approaching or occurring weather hazard with the potential pose significant danger to users of a highway within a municipality. That's kind of the definition. Weather hazard means a weather hazard determined by Environment Canada as meeting the criteria for the issuance of an alert under its public weather alert programming. And we currently, the CAO will declare a significant weather event or his designate. That's our current policy. Again, if council wishes to change that, that's always just. And the declaration of the end of the significant weather event, again, would be advertised the same way that we advertised the beginning of the event. So probably through our social media, municipal website. I think there was a third one that I'm getting, but definitely on our website and social media. Additional services that Public Works provides is obviously we maintain our municipal parking lots, both snow and ice. We have a winter maintenance of private roads policy. And I jotted down the policy number. I don't know if every member of council had the pleasure of reading it. But certain roads that we do maintain under this currently, under the policy currently, is Point Road, Prangs Lane, Pellerin Road, Argo Road, Saint-Jean Road, and Alfred Road. Additional services are fire stations. Many of our fire stations, the Public Works get them on the way by. Some are a little bit problematic because the equipment that, when you have a 42-foot long plow truck with a one-way wing, the snow comes off on one side, and when the fire station is on the right-hand side, it becomes a little bit tricky, but we manage. Cemeteries, there's, I think, only 2 cemeteries that we open, every event or subsequent to an event. And a third that we do as per request. We also open up our landfills. Some private organizations that past councils and this council may wish to continue. The Club d'Âge d'Or in River Valley, the church parking area in Field, Sainte Marguerite Diouville School in Verner, Club 50 in Cache Bay, Club de l'Amitié, Verner, Centre Communautaire La Vigne. We do only sanding. There's a contractor who takes care of the plowing, I believe. Snow removal. So when we say snow removal, just so I'm clear, it's when we actually go and get the snow and put it in the box of the truck and take it away. It has nothing to do with winter maintenance per se. So snow removal is generally done in ICI sectors, so in institutional, commercial, industrial sectors where you have a lot more foot traffic, a lot more parking and coming and going, that kind of deal. So the majority of the time, our Main Street, King Street, Principal Street in Verner. In Verner, we also do the kind of side street because there's a lot of people parking on the side streets, Paquette, Baudin. We have to do our municipal parking lots. For example, this one here, we end up with a big stockpile. We have to go and remove some of that snow. The Highway 17 Champlain Bridge to Coursol. The design of Highway 17 and the sidewalk, there's no snow storage. So the plow goes by, pushes it on the sidewalk machine goes by, tries to tuck it on the windrow, and so it's problematic. So it generates more snow removal. Highway 17 Highway 64 from Highway 17 to Cache Bay Road. It's a bit of a sightline issue for residents living on that road where they back up and the banks are so high that they can't see backing onto potential Highway 64 traffic. So what we do there is we just transfer the bank over to the mill side where there's no so it's an easier fix, but still a service that we provide. Michaud, Ethel, the school areas, right? We try and keep those free and clear as much as possible. John Street will do same thing. Cars backing in and out of their driveways. A lot of traffic. It's just Nipissing Street, busy street again, and of course there's sightline issues where we'll get. At certain times of years, we'll get requests where a certain intersection is problematic, where cars have to kind of sneak out into the intersection to see around the snowbank. So we'll go and get those as well. A bit of a challenge, or not necessarily a challenge, but something that needs to be considered for our staff when they deploy to do winter maintenance is the regulation 55506, and it's under the Highway Traffic Act, and it's an hours of service regulation. So they basically tell you that a driver cannot drive more than 13 hours in a day, period. They can't drive after being on duty for more than 14 hours. So they could be sitting at a desk for 13 and a half hours. Once they hit the 14-hour mark, they can't drive after that. They need a minimum of 10 hours off in a 24-hour period, of which 8 need to be consecutive. I don't know if everyone's following me, but if you have any questions after, feel free to ask. So we are bound by that regulation. Again, there are exemptions where if we are into an emergency situation, there is a form that we can declare. But when you start declaring an emergency situation, every snow event, the MTO will come down on you and say, hey, you need to pull up your socks and figure out your operations. So that it's another kind of little bit of a barrier. Important notes or challenges that impact our winter operations. Plowing and sanding higher traffic areas during the day is inefficient and significantly increases municipal liability and risk of accidents and incidents. when, and it seems like it's earlier and earlier, but anytime after 6:37 a.m., don't try and plow Main Street, King Street, Principal, even John Street. It's the guys are just, we're asking for trouble. So that's why we deploy at 4 a.m. It's impossible to especially to get out of the busy kind of collector areas. So the class fours, right? You want to get those done before 6 a.m. Otherwise you can't move. And they're big equipment. And so you increase your risk significantly. Additional services and their respective timing. So it's a juggling act because the parking lots, in my opinion, we need to get these roads done, but a slip and fall in a parking lot is, and that's where Jay kind of reminds me of the importance of the municipality as a whole. It's not just the roads and sidewalks. Our parkings, we can have a slip and fall as easily on a parking lot than we can on our roads or sidewalks. So it's a juggling act. So that's what I meant by that. Deploying too early into a weather event will result in snow accumulation, snowpack, and icy conditions on the front end, front end road segment. So what I mean by that, if, for example, we have a weather event, it starts snowing at 6 at night. And by midnight, we can have 6 inches of snow on the ground. We look at the weather pattern, and if we see the accumulation continuing up until 6 a.m., there's no reason for us to deploy at 12, because if we deploy at 12, we do, for example, Principal or John Street first. By the time we're done, there's another 6 inches, and we can't redeploy. We need a second crew to go out and get that, right? So that's one of the, so there's a bit of a balancing act on, we have to look at the weather pattern and kind of strategically say, okay, now's the time to go. Just so that we don't end up with a bunch behind the plow, right? It's got to fall before we deploy. But again, that's our current policy. If council wishes to change that, then we can definitely have those discussions. Drivers need 10 and 8 hours off duty. I touched on that. Equipment breakdowns. So we are currently running, we have one spare plow truck, which is a standard shift, and all the drivers despise it, but it works and they use it in a pinch. So that is a good thing. We don't have spare nose plows. We don't have, there's some spare equipment that I think we would benefit from, but we currently don't have it. And you might see those on budget deliberation. Staffing issues, illnesses, of course, that's not just in West Nipissing, that's all over. As Mr. Dupree also mentioned, he's seeing those same problems. Illegal parking, I'm sure we've all seen the comments, and hopefully once we get our bylaw enforcement officer, that a lot of those problems will go away. Obstructing, encumbering, and fouling of highways, sidewalks, bridges with snow. We're going to touch on that later. You're pushing snow across the road. Some are good at it, some aren't. It causes equipment breakdowns. It causes us to have to go back and redo an area because there was, cars parked or somebody pushed a big glob of snow in the street, or we have to redeploy. So a bit of a challenge. A collective agreement maintenance, overtime clause, very minor. We're kind of bound by the 4 o'clock. We could, but if we deploy at 3 a.m., then the entire shift is overtime. And so you try and, we keep that in mind. Has it been an issue? Not since I've been with West Nipissing. Okay, there was also a request, and it's a little bit of a neat concept where, we see the grader go by and there's like a little gate that drops down, and the windrow at the person's driveway doesn't get left behind, right? So it is a thing, but I don't know of any municipalities that use it. It would be okay in a more rural setting where you have one driveway every quarter mile. But in a downtown setting, it just would be impossible to hit that switch and catch every driveway. And the concept is really nice, but it's just not sustainable, not a sustainable level of service that I think we can provide at this time. And last but not least, sorry, almost done. Winter maintenance, plowing, sanding sequences in existing 3 public works bases areas. So the field area, there's 4 routes. We have route 1 is the grader. Route 2 is a combination dump body spreader with a reversible blade. So not only, they can reverse the blade to dump on either side. Route 3, same thing, combination dump body spreader with reversible blade. Route 4 is a 3/4 ton pickup with the plow. Sturgeon Falls area, Route 1, combination dump body spreader with one-way plow. Route 2, combination dump body spreader with one-way plow. Route 3 is a grader. Route 4 is a grader. Route 5 is a loader with a hydraulic snow blade. Route 6 is a single axle combination dump body spreader, one-way plow. Route 7, sidewalk machine. Route 8, combination dump body spreader with one-way plow. Route 9, 3/4 ton pickup with plow. Route 10, loader with hydraulic snow blade. Route 11, sidewalk machine. Route 12, 3/4 ton pickup with plow. Verner area, Route 1, grader. Route 2, combination dump body with reversible plow. Route 3, combination dump body spreader with one-way plow. Route 4, same. Route 5, same. Route 6, loader with hydraulic snow blade. So as promised, to touch on routes. So a specific route, for example, let's pick Route 4 in Verner. I believe that is the Dokees Run and that kind of south end of. So when the truck deploys, there's always a road that's done first and always a road that's done last. The challenge is, or the kind of tricky part is to ensure that you have enough sand to make the hill once you get to Dokees from the bridge, to make sure that you're as efficient as possible. You don't want to be traveling with the plow up. You're not plowing. You're not providing a service. A funny thing that the public may see, why does the plow go down Lafreniere Road, doesn't do Duck Creek, comes back out onto the highway and heads to Dokees? I asked that question to our operator. The reason is instead of traveling the highway with his blade up, he goes in, does one pass on Lafreniere, then when he's coming back, Lafreniere is half done. But to the public eye, they kind of go, this is weird. Why are they doing that, right? So these routes have been, and I'm a strong advocate of, even though we've been doing something wrong for 30, 50 years, doesn't mean we can't fix it today. So we constantly look at these routes, efficiencies. If we're traveling with a full load of sand, it's harder on gas. So if you can get rid of your sand and you don't need it at the end of the run, try and get rid of it first. Obviously, we have to do our collectors first, our class 4s. We try and do those first for the reasons that I stated. Anything after 6 a.m., it's tough to do. We increase our risk of accident and incidents. So there's a lot of logistics that goes behind a plow route. It's not a matter of, okay, you're going to go here. It's, there's a lot of logistics, and there's a lot of routes and there's a lot of roads. I don't know how else to explain how the routes are set up and the logistics behind deployment and individual routes, but I'm welcoming any questions that the council may have.
Merci, Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions from the council? Question? Conseiller Pellerin?
Oui, c'est comme. Just, how long does it take? You deploy everybody?
Okay, so on a light snowfall, 7 to 8 hours. On a heavy snowfall, you're into the 10, 12 hours for one route for a deployment.
And Werner here, it shows you don't have any hiccups with the snowplow in Werner?
We do have them, but they're done afterwards. So, right, because I think it's the area subforeman's route who does the loader with the hydraulic blade. So he's a lot more efficient with the big blade, and so he does what he can with that first, gets the bulk, and then he'll go back with the truck and plow. You also, I noticed a while ago, I missed the sidewalk machine. The sidewalk machine is in there as well, because you know as well as I do, there's sidewalks in Werner.
Just a thought, was it on the bridge in Werner? I noticed that you don't do it, right? It's too bad, because I see a lot of people walking from Batesy Road. They're walking on the road.
Mm-hmm. It's an MTO highway, right? So we don't have jurisdiction over that highway, but I have had that comment in the past. And what I will do is I will get in touch with the MTO, and maybe we could do kind of a snow removal program where, you know, as time permits, go and remove that snow. So I will look into that. Yeah, good point.
Last thing, Locust Road. Any chance that you contract that out? It used to be contracted out. Because even summertime for the graders, like the graders are going there, sometimes both graders, an hour to go, an hour to come back. That's.
You're absolutely right. So a grader, to do a good job, 5 kilometers an hour, there's 21 kilometers to grade. And if you do the math, it takes us 9 hours, 2 graders, 450 liters of fuel. If it's council's wish and we want me to look into contracting, we can definitely look at that. But again, I would need direction from council.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I know at one point it used to be like that. Why it changed, I don't know. Because it would make.
Yeah, I
sense
wasn't here. Yeah.
Get even the municipality from Monettville to in an agreement or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Pellerin. More questions? Councilor Lee?
Yeah, to you, Mr. Chair. What's the composition of staff for the?
The composition of staff. So how many staff we have?
Yes, like your.
Boy, that's yeah. So I'm just thinking overall public works, including clerks, including it.
I'm looking at the drivers.
Just the drivers.
Can
Okay.
drive, yeah,
Okay.
or road maintenance.
10 public works in Sturgeon, and I would really like to look at my
Okay,
but I can definitely get back to you with the exact number.
okay.
Yeah.
Another question I have is the schedule. So you have a shift that starts at 4 a.m. What time does that shift end?
Right. So the shift doesn't start at 4 a.m. Our regular hours of work are 7:30 to 4, Monday to Thursday, 7:30 to 11:30 on Fridays. What we have in the collective agreement is a winter maintenance control kind of agreement with the union that during winter months, if we deploy at 4 a.m., they're done at noon, no overtime. And 90% of the time, that's what we do because of the challenges of plowing after 6 a.m.
I know that clarifies some
Mm-hmm.
difficulties you're having.
Sure.
Now, you mentioned that the CAO would post the adverse events. Now, does he provide I don't know who to direct that to. Is it posted like in the notices on the municipal website? Or because I haven't seen any.
We haven't had any. So when we have the winter storm events, And so as Sean said, it would be a sort of a declaration that then provides us to provide notice to our residents. And when Sean was talking about on our website and social media, I think the other place you're probably missing is radio. It goes out so that our residents are aware that we've declared a storm event. But yes, it would be in our news and notices. Our communications people will put it like right front and center and things like that, if that kind of thing is.
So the last two adverse events, there was two, right?
Mhm.
Where were they publicized?
They weren't declared significant weather events.
Yeah, they weren't declared as significant weather events because we still got them back down before the 24-hour period. Right? Even though we far exceeded the 10 centimeters. That absolutely, but the 24-hour clock was still met.
For the regular snowfall.
Yeah. Yeah, so when we would declare, maybe I didn't explain myself right, when we would declare a significant weather event, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of Buffalo when they have, 3 feet of snow, there is no way that we can meet the standard. That's when we would declare a significant weather event. But typically, even if it snows a foot, we can typically get it back down to within the threshold within 24 hours. If we see that we can't, that's when we declare a significant weather event to let the public know that we're not going to meet the standard and be very careful on the roads.
And when you plow the plows, do they follow like the same pattern as far as the region they're plowing?
So I did get an update on the routes. The routes are a little bit fluid because if they go by a block and they see 4 cars parked, well, there's no sense to it. So they're going to go down the next one. That's one example. If that would be a good question for the operators, but typically, Councillor Tessier, they will follow a sequence, right?
So let's say you look at your core, right?
Mm-hmm.
How later do you get, let's say, to Ward 6 areas like River Valley, Carter Field?
Right.
Deploy like at the same time?
Yes.
Or-
Yes, so all 3 areas all deploy at the same time. So the field area takes care of River Valley. So they would deploy, and I believe Route 2 in field deploys to do the River Valley
So
section.
how many are deployed in each section? Like how many staff do you have that are deployed in each section?
Okay. So field area, there's 4. So they take care of field, River Valley, and
So
Kipling.
your list.
Yes,
there is the
exactly.
number of staff, okay.
Well, actually, the Sturgeon Falls area has a bit more staff because of our distribution collection department. But they also help out with routes. So there's some sharing there between the 2 departments.
So 4 for field area and Sturgeon, approximately how many?
I believe 12, but I think there's an additional, did you have that, Elisa?
I did, I just blew it up. We've got, I think there was sort of as Sean said, in Sturgeon Falls, we have operators that are dedicated to public works and roads, and we have a little pool of operators who are primarily what we call distribution and collection, so pipes in the ground, but they will be put onto plows when we've got storm events going. So he said, so Sean, as Mr. Ramirez said, we've got 12 routes that are set in Sturgeon Falls, so that would be the regular deployment would be the 12.
12, yeah.
And then for the Verner?
Vernon area, 6.
And then that little group, that extra, how many approximately?
Distribution collection have 4 FTEs, but some of those are used within these 12, right?
Oh, within the 12?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
maximum.
Because
12.
it also helps in sickness, so they can kind of fill in, right?
Those were my questions. Thank you.
Autre question? Conseiller St-Louis?
Thank you, through you, Chair. So one of the things that has been mentioned that we talked about, a couple of people touched on, is the removal of the snow 10 centimeters or more. So, and you're saying that we have to meet that within 24 hours. Are we talking about the whole municipality needs to be done completely within 24 hours? Okay, so I think that's the biggest concern that's been going on. And I mean, everybody who's here, and that's probably one of the reasons that you are here, has been that well, on the last snowfall didn't occur in a lot of the areas. I shouldn't say in a lot of the areas, in some areas. So that's why I was asking if that 10 centimeter means that it needs to be done in every area. And if that's what it is, then yeah, that's fine. How can we, how can we reassure our residents that will occur in the future without declaring a major significant weather event? Because I believe that's what most of the people are, and I think that's why Councillor Tessier was asking if it was designated as a significant snow event, because a lot of the areas, or I shouldn't say a lot because I can't speak to all the other areas, because some of the areas were not done within the 24 hours.
Chair, if I can. So, yeah, so I'm going to sort of back up a little bit. I'm going to leave Thursday aside for a moment, but we always get people calling about snow removal. And as Mr. Remillard said at the beginning, that there's always a first run and there's always a last run. And certainly some people are going to be at the end of the run, and that's based on all that scheduling that Mr. Remillard has already spoken about. On Thursday, where we realized there was a lot of chatter, and Mr. Remillard done some investigation on that, we met our minimum maintenance standards. So we actually did meet the 24-hour rule. However, we absolutely acknowledged that to our residents that we didn't meet our usual level of standard. So yes, we met minimum standards, so council doesn't need to be concerned about liability, but we absolutely do apologize to some of those residents for not meeting our usual level of service. When we have significant snowfalls, even if we don't declare them a significant snow event because we know we're going to meet standards, it still is just a lot of balancing as far as service timing and our maintenance of arterial roads. On Thursday, we had sort of a bit of a miscommunication. We had some stuff fall apart in our communication that led to 3 routes, so it wasn't entirely widespread, but we did have 3 routes that didn't complete 100% of their routes on the first go out. They got them the following morning, which made us, compliant, but obviously left some residents in a difficult situation. So we have taken steps to avoid the communication breakdown that led to that happening on Thursday. So we should be able to assure our residents that they will be able to get the same level of service that they've had in the past. And we do apologize for those that had problems on Thursday.
Good for me, yeah, thank you.
Autre question, more questions? Monsieur Pellerin?
Just one last one, thank you. When you deploy, who decides it?
The area formants, the area of the patrolmans.
Okay, so
Yeah,
field might go out, but not burner?
There is communication between the 3 areas, absolutely. But there may be, the 10 centimeter threshold and nothing in Dokis, or vice versa, right? So absolutely. Yeah, but usually when one says we're going out at 4 a.m., the others will go, oh, wait a minute, I better check. Right? So it kind of raises that flag that, there's also the issue of La Clara Road, where the field area does half the road, the Sturgeon area does the other half. And then we get, well, why is the field one done better? And why is that? Well, sometimes the deployment isn't exactly the same, or there's been a breakdown in equipment and the one section's done, the other's not. We also have that same situation on Levac and Leclerc, where we are attempting to better work together, and the operators need to communicate better to make sure that, when it's done, work together, work as more of a team instead of the 3 area silos. We are working hard on that. It's a difficult habit to break, but we are working on it.
More questions? Mayor?
Hello. Okay, I just have a couple of questions for you. First, on the winter maintenance of private roads. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 roads listed here. And this might actually be a question for Ms. Craddock. What's the total cost? I should have asked that one in advance, but we take on the responsibility of the cost associated with that. So staff and the sand and salt and everything, and that's by policy from almost 20 years ago there. So what's that based on?
I wouldn't have a cost breakdown for you right now. I certainly could put together, based on, I'll talk to Mr. Remillard about sort of the average number of hours spent, and we'll do some assumptions to get kind of what it costs us. But yes, we've had this policy. Each year they reapply for maintenance, so it's not just a given every time. And our Public Works Department does inspect the roads and make sure that they're still at a standard that our trucks can get down, our trucks can turn around and things like that.
Could we maybe get those, just a round estimate on that as part of the budget presentation when we go into budget deliberations? Just because I think it's interesting for us to know what the cost is for that. So I don't need the answer now, but it might be just an interesting part of budget deliberations. Second on the equipment lists, so we have one sidewalk machine that is part of the Sturgeon Falls area and one that is part of Verner. Or does that one machine move back and forth?
One in Verner and two in Sturgeon Falls.
Two in Sturgeon Falls, okay. And that does every sidewalk. So it's not just sidewalks in front of our commercial core or sidewalks in front of our properties.
Sidewalk is done.
Every sidewalk in front of every residence. Okay. What's the difference, and this is just a curiosity question, what's the difference in the uses between the reversible plow and the one-way plow? Like why would you use a reversible on a certain route, and what is the advantage, and how do you determine? I'm going to assume they're a more expensive piece of equipment.
Not necessarily.
Okay,
not necessarily.
But how is it determined that this route gets a reversible plow?
It's just trying to find an analogy, but for example, if you're cleaning and a one-way plow, the snow comes off on the passenger side, and you can't change that. On a reversible plow, you can change. So let's say on a dead-end street and the turnaround is on the left-hand side. Well, instead of dumping your snow on the right-hand side and set in front of someone's driveway, or you can reverse the direction and dump the snow on the left-hand side. When clearing around blue bins, right? If the blue bin is on the right-hand side, you're pushing all the snow against it. So it's a tool that is more efficient and provides a better service.
And what is the number again? And I know the number, but for everybody's edification, how many kilometers of roads do our crews maintain?
Our last count was 532, but we've had a few subdivisions since, so maybe put it at 540, 545, maybe.
So that's a huge amount of roads. And, I think people sometimes fail to realize, we have absolutely massive geography for this municipality, and our crews are traveling long distances. From Dokis Road to North River Valley, we've got to be 120 kilometers. It's a big area, and we have a low population density, which means that we have a low ability from taxation standpoint to support services. So I really applaud the work that our crews do to provide the level of service they do within the budgets that we provide them to do it. So I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chair. Oh, don't forget about
Councilor Stool.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to Mr. Remillard for his presentation. There's a lot of information and a lot of misinformation on social media. So it's good to hear the actualities of what we're dealing with here. As a municipality and as our staff and our staff members who are out there on the roads trying to keep things safe for our constituents. And my thought, I'm sharing a couple points. Money's not always the answer. There's only a certain amount of tools or vehicles that we have, and only a certain amount of hours that our operators can be working on the road. So I really appreciate the information shared this evening to give that perspective to those watching at home and to those who might want to check this up on YouTube following our meeting tonight. But there's a lot more factors besides just money in making things work. It's maximizing what we have available to us and working within a certain budget. So I just appreciate the clearing up of some of the factual stuff. And providing some information to community members who might have different interpretations of how things work. Certainly, there's a lot of roads that we clear, and like you mentioned, Madam Mayor, when we're close to over 500 kilometers that we have to clear during significant snowfalls. We always hear this when there's major snowfalls, but I think easily within regular winter conditions, our roads are always in great shape, and I appreciate the staff who make that happen. And I just also wanted to mention to the point made about Dokes Road. I think it's great if we can engage in some dialogue to see where we might find some answers to the solution. I know this was an issue way back when I was a rookie councillor too, 15 years ago, and the kind of volleying back and forth between our service, providing service, or our staff providing service there, Dokes staff providing service there, and some of the other municipalities. So it's been an issue that's been there for a long time, and I don't think there's an easy solution because we would have found it by now. But I'm happy that we'll engage in some dialogue and see what we can do to try and alleviate that issue, and again maximize our staff and the work that they do and the costs that's associated with maintaining that particular road. So just wanted to say thanks, and just wanted to prove that I'm not a cardboard cutout sitting here in my hotel room with some volume to it. But thanks, Mr. Ahmed, for the presentation, and that's it.
Thank you, Conseiller Restoul. Conseiller Tessier.
Just one more question regarding emergency services, ambulances, or is there a communication process between the emergency services and the municipality? Because I did read that an ambulance did get stuck and an individual had to help. So that could be something that could be looked at.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. As Jamie mentioned, I think this presentation was good to have a better understanding of just how much work Public Works needs to do when responding to any snowfall. I catch myself sometimes standing outside waiting for the snowplow to pass, right, just so I could actually start snow blowing. But one thing I'd like to touch on too is that other towns have trouble. So when the chatter goes around that was mentioned, it's not just West Nipissing. Everyone has the same issue typically when it comes to those odd snowfall times or anything like that. When I lived in Ottawa, the whole city shut down for a couple days because of a similar snowfall that we had on Thursday. City buses were stopped everywhere, and that's a large city with probably a much bigger budget, much more staff than we have, much more equipment. So it's something that I applaud you guys for doing such a good job and keeping the roads clear. I know that as much as people would say, just stay home when there's lots of snow on the roads, that's difficult. Not everybody can do that. But I believe you mentioned that some roads had a hard time or there was some miscommunication. I just, through some family and people who live on that road, I understood that Sabray Road was left, I guess, till the next morning. Would that happen to be one of the roads that was
was one of them.
Okay.
So I did speak to a lovely lady and explained, and she was very, understanding after being explained the process and the challenges. So you're absolutely right. Sabray was one of them.
Yeah, no, just thought I'd ask just to make sure that was one spoken of. And then this may be a little early because we don't quite have our bylaw officer yet. I'm not sure if you were here when we had our bylaw officer for parking downtown overnight. Was it your responsibility, the deployed operators, to contact anyone to deal with that, or how would that go about?
So generally, the bylaw officer is under Lisa's or Ms. Craddock's umbrella, but our staff usually would report, okay, there's somebody parked here, or there's somebody parked here, or there's somebody pushed a big blob of snow in the road here. That's typically how it.
Yeah, and we would schedule bylaw officers for early morning shifts, and they would just come in and as Mr. Amir said, be in communication with Public Works. They also would just sort of patrol areas because, you find them even when you're not clearing that. It just, gets the habit reinforced that we're not parking on our streets overnight.
May I just interject? So there has actually been an agenda request item received by another councillor to discuss some issues in regards to the parking bylaw. The parking bylaw is here for later tonight, but those are very operational issues. So at the next meeting of February 7th, we're actually scheduled to have a more fulsome discussion about the parking bylaw, which may go into increasing of fines or other methods that we may be able to make some changes to that bylaw to make it a little bit more supportive of the operations of our public works crew. So it is actually on, it's on the radar. And even though we're talking about the parking bylaw tonight, those are very operational issues with stop signs. And a bigger discussion about the actual bylaw itself is actually scheduled to come forward for February 7th.
Oh, yeah, I was just looking to get a bit more information on how that would work in the future, because I know it's come up a little bit, and nobody should be parking downtown overnight, especially when people know that there's a snowfall coming. Thank you. And thanks for the presentation.
Thank you. Any other questions from councillors?
Through you, Mr. Chair. This is actually a positive comment for you. A resident reached out the Christmas time snowstorm and she put in a service request and she commented on how fast it was plowed this time. So it works.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't get those too often.
It was a nice message.
Yeah, nice. Thank you for sharing that. Pass it on to the crew for sure.
Any other questions from any councillors? Des questions des conseillers? C'est beau. So from my side, Sean, Mr. Rimiard, thank you very much for the work that you do. Le travail que vous faites est très apprécié. Je pense que les gens ne réalisent pas combien de chemin qu'on doit nettoyer dans si peu de temps. Quand ils pensent que la distance de 500 km, c'est plus loin que même Toronto. Et pour aller à Toronto puis revenir, c'est minimum 8 heures, dépendant de quelle vitesse que tu conduis. Ça fait que c'est pas évident. Alors, merci beaucoup à toi et toute ton équipe de la part de moi-même. Merci beaucoup. Back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Given the time, we're at 8:24. I would entertain a mover and a seconder for a 10-minute break. Councillor Rivard, Councillor Nicole, sorry. I'm English and I'm saying it with my French accent.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nicol. At approximately 8:25 PM, a motion was tabled for a 10-minute recess.
All in favor? Unanimous. No, she stayed.
You did.
So we're not.
Yeah, that was good.
Well done.
It is conservation. Logistics are, but and people don't know, right? So you don't know it's.
Exactly.
All you
Now
see-
it's out there.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're going to move on to the regular portion of our meeting. No items under planning, so we'll move on to correspondence and accounts. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagné. Be it resolved that the minutes of council held on January the 3rd, 2023 be adopted as presented.
Okay, any questions or comments on the minutes? Yes, Councillor Pellerin.
Yes, Madam Mayor, just quick, we got a few people asked me about the posting for the bylaw officer. Has it been posted? And if it's posted, is it internally or is it open to the public?
Actually, I apologize. I told you folks on Saturday that, oh, excuse me, Madam Mayor, for jumping in.
That's okay.
But it had been posted, so it actually hadn't been posted. We just updated the job description. It will go out this week. It is an external posting. And so they'll see it on our website, Indeed, and LinkedIn and various channels like that. They can find it. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Carried. And the next item on the agenda, 10.1, is the adoption of the service request and complaint policy. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagné. Be it resolved that the following discussions at the January 3rd, 2023 meeting, council hereby adopts a service request and complaints policy as presented.
Questions or comments on this policy? Okay, all in favor? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, unanimous. Thank you. Okay, item 10.2, authorization to move forward with a comprehensive vehicle for hire bylaw with public consultation.
It is moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved that the following discussions at the January 3rd, 2023 council meeting, council is hereby directed staff to move forward with development of a vehicle for hire bylaw.
Okay, questions or comments on that? Councillor Tessier?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I just want to confirm that along with the consultation, there'll be surveys on the internet or available on paper as well during the consultations.
Madam Chair, the intention is, and I will be working with communications to determine the most expeditious and efficient means of reaching all residents of West Nipissing. So in addition to one public meeting, there will be internet feedback as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? 7, thank you, carried. Okay, item 10.4, authorization to reestablish a youth advisory committee. Madam Clerk? What? Did I miss one? I'm sorry. 10.3. Rewind. Move to item 10.3, authorization to establish an ad hoc committee to review the procedural bylaw.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Be it resolved that following discussions held at the January 3rd, 2023 meeting, council hereby approves the creation of an ad hoc committee to review the procedural bylaw 2019-94, which participants shall include Kathleen Rochon, Mayor, Jamie Restoul, Deputy Mayor, Danielle Gagné, Councillor, and Tessier, Councillor.
Any questions or comments on that? All in favor? Thank you. I keep forgetting to look at Jamie, but I'm counting you anyway. Or Councillor Restoul, thank you. Okay, and the one I just did, item 10.4, authorization to reestablish a youth advisory committee. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved, following discussions at the January 3rd, 2023 meeting, council hereby approves the establishment of the West Nipissing Youth Advisory Committee.
Questions or comments? All in favor? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you. Carried. And next item, item 10.5, authorization to establish a community services committee.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Be it resolved that following discussions at the January 3rd, 2023 meeting, council hereby approves the creation of a community services committee.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Item 10.6, authorization, bylaw. I'll let you go, Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-02, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to borrow money to meet current expenditures, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Ms. Craddock, would you mind just explaining the purpose of this for all of us new councillors? I know it's a fairly standard policy, but I'm sure council would like to hear it.
It is just a standard resolution that we do every year. We have a line of credit with the bank. It's a $5 million line of credit, and they require that every year council sort of renew that line of credit exists. We've actually been in a fortunate situation for several years where we have not had to be into our line of credit, but the line of credit is there to sort of cover for the time until interim taxes are collected and the cash flows. So that's why we have this line of credit that's available to us.
Questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Gagne?
So I have just a question. That line of credit is there in case of needs, or do we actually use that line of credit?
So back when I first started, we actually were in and out of the line of credit, particularly at the beginning time of the year. Like I said, until we got interim billed, until we got through due dates and final and things like that. For the last several years, because we've worked at building reserves and things like that, we have not had to be into the line of credit. It's just there if we need it.
Okay. Do we estimate we might need it this year?
I wouldn't anticipate it.
No. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Pellegrini.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on that point, I was looking on page 80. It says for the West Nipissing Environmental Services, $100,000. Just curious.
Yeah. So it used to be that the Environmental Services, which is a separate corporation, had its own line of credit attached to their bank, and we sort of just guaranteed their line of credit for them. A few years ago, just due to cost, it was rearranged so that a portion of our $5 million can be allocated out to environmental services. So it sort of gives the municipality the ability to lend the funds to environmental services if they ever got into that situation. They've also been fiscally healthy for a number of years, and I wouldn't anticipate that they need to have issues like that come up.
Okay, so this is just an if.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, unanimous, carried. Thank you. And Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-03, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to set the interim tax rate for 2023, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Questions or comments? Councillor Cassier?
Yes, Madam Mayor, through you. Is this a similar bylaw that for last year, the bylaw 2022-44 kind of replaces it or creates a new one?
If I may, Madam Mayor?
Of course.
So it's actually not the replacement of that one. There would have been a very similar one. It's probably labeled number 2 or 3 from the beginning of the year. And so the one you're referencing is our final tax one. So that will still come after we've got through our budget and our ratios and all kinds of fun things.
Yes, I saw that.
This just allows us to do that, what we call the interim billing, which is sort of based on last year's taxes so that we can start to collect funds before the final billing.
Thank you. Good question. Thank you. Any other questions from council? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Carried. Yes.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor
Sorry.
Bad writing. Old lady, sorry. Oh, be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-04 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-60 as amended to regulate traffic and parking in the West Nipissing municipality shall come into force and take effect on the date it is passed.
Thank you. Okay, so there is a staff report included in your packages today, prepared by Mr. Remial and Madame Duchamp. So this is a very operational update to the bylaw. We're going to see these several times, I would imagine, over the course of our 4-year tenure here. We're adding stop signs, we're doing this, we're doing that. So the changes are outlined there. Are there any questions or comments in regards to the document provided by staff or the change to the bylaw? Councillor Gagné?
Juste une question de clarification. J'ai vu dans le rapport le stationnement pour les arénas puis le complexe. Sont-ils inclus? Parce qu'il y a des activités qui se passent, comme des concerts, des choses comme ça. Si les gens laissent leurs autos là pour la nuit puis ils conduisent pas, c'est qu'est-ce qu'on veut qu'il arrive? Est-ce que c'est inclus là-dedans ou est-ce que c'est...
Je crois que ça s'inclut dans under municipal facilities.
Oui.
Donc peut-être une exemption pour certains stationnements.
So I guess my question is that, like at the complex, or if somebody rents an arena, or even like in the river, we used to have dances and so on. Some people would leave their vehicles overnight in there. But from what I read, is that no vehicles left at all.
And that, through you, Madam Chair, that has always been in the bylaw on, municipal facilities. And I think that we've been very, yes, that's the rules, but we all also understand that it's probably better. So I think that our staff are aware that if there's a wedding or something and vehicles may be left overnight, I'm sure that with communication from community services to, to our public works, if there is like a wedding event or something where there may be vehicles, I think that probably that would just be a communication piece, because I don't know that it's ever been an issue in the past. Mr. Remier might be able to.
Not to my knowledge. Not the I'm not getting the feedback from the arena in Verner or from the the Sturgeon Falls complex. It's mostly our downtown parking. So the one across the street here, Queen Street and Holditch Street.
Okay. Mr. Boudet?
Madam Mayor, maybe one option to get around that, if it is problematic at a certain point, would be to designate an area of a parking at the arenas, or so that if people know they're going to be leaving their vehicles there overnight, to maybe tuck them into the corner, or if we designate an area, then it becomes problematic trying to, because if we have, it becomes problematic to try to get the word out to individuals so that they know where to put their cars. So I don't know if there's an easy solution to that, but
because sorry, I'll just put my 2 cents in for a second. I tend to like things to be spelled out. So us deciding not to enforce on certain occasions, I'm not an exceptions kind of girl. I like to have policies set so that it's clear what to expect and that we're not making decisions to exempt certain situations. And your ideas, like, except for the fact that somebody who may already be intoxicated has to move their vehicle from one place in the parking lot to another, but there probably is some kind of solution. I just don't know what it is. Councillor Rival?
Through you, Madam Chair. I'm just thinking, when you brought that up, it made me think of the Verner family tournament that I play in almost every year, and a lot of people leave their cars there overnight. And yeah, like you said, it'd be difficult, I guess, to designate a spot. And I know one year for sure there was a heavy snowfall. And everyone, when they got to their cars the next day, they found a way out, and then I guess the plowing happened at a given time, and it seemed to work. But yeah, I do agree that maybe there should be some sort of. Maybe
it works into the contracts with community services when somebody rents out the arena, the rental of the arena allows for overnight parking or the facility allows for overnight parking for that night. And that is communicated from community services to public works that with the rental, it's included. Like, okay, we're not going to tow you because you're paying for the facility, please come drink and drive. And maybe that's the way around the kind of policy, like we don't want to have exemptions, so how do we work around it? So maybe that's the way to do it, is write it into the contracts with community services that overnight parking is included. So I don't know, any other questions on this subject or the entire document? Councillor Restool, I'm going to go to Jamie's because he'll ignore it.
I just wanted to share that I appreciate that comment, because I had the same comment as Councillor Gagne and as yourself, Madam Mayor. Just if we're going to be, fixing the policy, let's make sure we're fixing it right, not fix it to already have exemptions or, to not have a clear policy while we're approving this. The other question, and I'm bringing this from my door-to-door discussions that I had in September, October, has to do with the arena as well, and it has to do with the back side of the arena on Clark Street, and just the parking designations there as well, going from the corner of the arena all the way down Clark, going north towards the actual parking area for the arena. It's all designated as no parking zones. And I know I've been there, I've parked there playing hockey on the side of the street, but I've had requests from people in the area asking about that parking area. And is it a no parking? If it is, are we going to enforce it? Or if it's not, can we change the designation to make it a parking area? So probably looking from Clark from Queen down to maybe William. But I'm just mentioning this because we do have signs that are there that says no parking. And I know a lot of the hockey moms and dads and old timers like Councillor Gagne may park there on occasion. But I just want to clarify that if we're going to clean up the bylaw, just to make sure we have the right spots in place.
Would you like to address that, Mr. Armiya?
Chair, those, the local resident had asked that the signs be put up, but the Clark Street between Front Street and John Street is designated as no parking. For some reason or another, it's in the bylaw.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it needs to be amended, by all means, all I need to know is when, and we'll go and remove the signs, or if we keep it as is, then we'll do.
Councillor Restool, we're going to be bringing back the parking bylaw for other reasons for February 7th. Would you be okay if we included that as part of that discussion on other kind of significant changes we would want to make? Like, I think the changes that are advised in this brief and for today are kind of operational issues for our staff as far as getting approvals for new stop signs and stuff. But if council would be willing to entertain some of those ideas at the next meeting when we'll have it in committee, that would probably solve the problems there, and we can talk a little bit more about the complex too.
Yeah, that would be fine with me. I appreciate that. I what's in there right now is great. Just wanted to bring that. Didn't know if this was our only window to look at those things, but if we can revisit it in the near future, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions, comments? Councillor Pellerin?
So yes, Madam Mayor, just so I'm clear, even the parking in the street, we're going to bring it back to the next meeting?
For additional, if we want to discuss that, like if the changes were going to be made on that area that Jamie just identified, it would have to come with direction from council. So I think it's best if it goes into committee and we can actually get a map of that area and see where the no parking starts and stops. Like, we don't really have the information on the specific item that Councillor Ristoul just brought up. And then there were some other changes that I think are being proposed, including perhaps some increases to fines for parking to try to address some of the overnight issues. So, like I say, the recommendations here are largely operational with the new stop signs and what else we have here? New stop signs for the subdivision and the parking lot maintenance. But we can address some of the other issues in the larger parking bylaw back on the 7th.
Yes, because even on the other streets in town, I remember I think on the Committee of Adjustment, we allow some minor variance for a few houses or a few rental, which didn't qualify for the amount of space for parking.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking like maybe do a one side, they can park on one side because there's gonna be some that are parking in the street, got no place to park at their place.
Mm-hmm.
Either on the street or at the parking lot owned by the town. But now if you're gonna get towed everywhere, they're stuck.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I don't know if we can do like one side, some cities got this. You can park on the one side of the street on the odd days or whatever, when there's snow removal, or am I dreaming?
Sorry, Mr. Plan.
So I think what we're referring to when it comes to public parking lots, or especially one on King and Queen, the one back here, I think there's options that we could look at. I know in the larger cities, they'll allow people to park when there's snow occurrences. They'll allow people to park, or overnight, they'll allow people to park on municipal parking lots. But the cars have to be out of the parking lots by a certain time in the morning to allow the plows to do the parking. Keep in mind, if federal government is bringing back employees to their work site, upstairs is going to get busy very quick, and it was very problematic in years past when we had cars parked overnight and there's 300 people working upstairs at StatsCan. So I think we're just trying to get ahead of the curve to be able to not have those problems reoccur. So yeah, maybe Sean and I can discuss it more. And I know some of the commercial buildings that have residences in town might be affected, but it's also a problem from a municipal standpoint and ensuring public safety and proper maintenance of our lots.
But just to wrap that up for Councillor Pellerin, what we certainly could do if we're going to have the larger discussion about the parking bylaw, is identify the areas that we are aware of where there's been these variances and allowed the street parking lots where we're aware that there's tenants parking, and we can identify those areas that we're aware of. I don't know if we'll capture all of them, but add that so the council's aware that yes, there's issues on this street that we know about, and then put it in front of council looking for some direction.
And we can identify, I would imagine we can identify some parking lots as no overnight parking. It doesn't have to be every piece of property that the municipality owns, right? Like we can say, okay, not that one, not that one, not that one, but this one's okay, right?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Just so from feedback from the public, I usually get the front end calls.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do get, we do see the need for multi-res parking on the street in our more urban sector, but we also get the complaints from our business owners saying that why was my snowbank not removed? Why is this car parked in front where there's significant snow buildup when the plow goes around a car and that buildup freezes? Their clients are, at risk of slip, trip, falls. It increases our municipal liability. So there's a lot of things to consider when we're going to allow people to park on our streets during winter months. Put it in perspective. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Sorry, yes, Councillor Gandhi.
Another question in regards to the additions of stop signs that are being put at the new subdivision. I'm just curious to, a corner of King and Alexi Street. There's a stop sign going there. Is this because it's a sharp stop or is it like a round corner?
Right. So the second phase of the subdivision will have a through street there.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so it was just added at this time, at the first phase or second phase.
Thank you, Monsieur Mignon.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor. Any other questions, comments on this? Okay, so I will put it to a vote. Do you want to read it again? Because it's been a while.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-04, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-60 to regulate traffic and parking in the West Nipissing municipality shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Okay, all in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you, carried. Okay. Next item on the agenda is 10.9. Yes, that's where we're at. Authorize staff to proceed with proposed road closure of a portion of William Street. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Whereas at a meeting held on January the 17th, 2023, Council received a recommendation for the closure of the single-lane westerly portion of William Street, beginning at the westerly limit of 20 William Street to the intersection of River and William Street. Be therefore resolved that Council hereby directs staff to commence the process for the closure of the portion of William Street pursuant to bylaw 2021-18 for the disposition of municipally owned land.
Questions, comments on this item? Councillor Riva.
Through you, Madam Chair, I definitely support this idea. It seems like a good idea, and I think it was mentioned also that could be some sort of a walking path connecting the portion of William closer to Giant Tiger towards the dam. I think it'd be smart. I know when I was younger, often I'd be biking down there pretty fast. It's a steep road, and cars would either, I don't know, they'd be stopped down there at the stop sign, or when you're coming down, or when you're coming up, cars would be coming down. There's not much room to move out of the way. So I think eliminating traffic there wouldn't be a bad idea. The road's pretty in rough shape too, if I remember. One thing I'd like to just mention is I'm not too sure about like the lighting. If it was a walking path or a bike path, I think maybe we'd have to look at adding a light or two for street light. I'm not too sure how it is right now. I forget, but might be something to consider if we go that route.
Councillor Pellerin.
Yes, Madam Chair. Was this just for the winter months? That's what I thought. No.
It's the safety concern is definitely driven by winter conditions. If we would maintain it for like a summer road, one-way street, it's going to need capital improvements. Right. So that's why, that we were, after discussion with the team, we sort of thought, well, it is a municipal asset. Why close it permanently? We could still use it as kind of a multi-purpose kind of biking, walking, access down to the falls and back up. But in winter, it would be obviously closed because people will still use it, but it won't be maintained. Right. So that's the idea behind it.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay.
Jamie.
Oh, Councillor Ristul, thank you.
Just one quick question. I agree. I support the suggestion or recommendation. Or if we do close it, are we going to put up some type of like temporary barricade just to make sure we don't have any liability with people with funny ideas trying to take their vehicle down there when it's not maintained?
Madam Chair. Absolutely, Councillor Ristul. I was thinking along the lines of a kind of a decorative block where in case of an emergency where we could possibly still use it for some type of access under emergency situations, the decorative blocks could easily be moved for some special event perhaps, or, it is a municipal asset that's still going to be there, but, extremely hazardous for our operators and not the best for our public safety because of the steep gradient and being a one-way.
Perfect. Thank you. And again, I appreciate the recommendation. I think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Just want to point out that in the resolution, we are authorizing staff to begin the process, and there is a process to doing something like that. And I'm just going to pass it on to our clerk to explain what that looks like as far as members of the public and consultation, etc.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Under the municipal act, municipalities do have the authority to close roads. However, there is a process attached to it, not just at the provincial level, but also at our municipal. We have a bylaw that deals with that. So there will be public notification given to residents by way of a notice in the newspaper, on our website, as well as directly abutting landowners will be notified by mail. They will have an opportunity to provide feedback or concerns, which will be brought back to this table along with the bylaw in order at the time of closing. Municipalities can't close roads without going through taking these steps.
Yeah, so just to clarify, this resolution here is allowing staff to commence that process. We aren't confirming that this is what is happening now, but we are allowing them to move forward with the process. Any other questions or comments on this item? Okay, at that, I'll call it to a vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Unanimous. 10.10, we have appointment to the West Nipissing Chamber of Commerce.
It is moved by Councillor TC and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Be it resolved that Councillor Chris Rivard be appointed to the West Nipissing Chamber of Commerce Board as Municipality of West Nipissing Council representative for the 2022-2026 term.
Thank you. Chris, did you want to?
Hey, it's through you.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Rivard.
That's fine. My name's Chris. Through you, Madam Chair. It just came about that I know a couple people that I worked with on the youth soccer board, and they reached out that they really needed a board member quickly, and they were looking and couldn't find anyone. So I brought it forward saying, hey, well, I'd be interested in joining that board. And we just thought it'd be a good idea to bring it to council so that instead of just representing myself, I could be helping represent council on this board and actually have a vote on that board, which is what they were looking for, a voting member, not just a sitting member. So if any
questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Thank you very much, Carrie. Okay, and item 10.11, Madam Clerk, please.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Whereas at a meeting held on January the 17th, 2023, received a request from the multi-domain owner of the trailer park located at the corner of Boulard Road and Corsell Road, seeking authorization for an exemption from municipal bylaw 2006-63 in order to permit their snow removal contractor to push the snow across Boulard Road onto private lands directly across from the property. Be it therefore resolved that council grants an exemption from the West Nipissing bylaw 2006-63 prohibiting the obstructing, encumbering, or fouling of highways, bridges with snow to multi-domain and its snow removal contract for the 2023 winter season in order to push snow across Boulard Road to private lands directly across, which location will be used to stockpile the snow.
Thank you. So there is a staff report included in your packages in regards to this. I would invite Mr. Remillard to speak to staff recommendations, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we did receive this request for an exemption. I'm not a proponent of bylaw exemptions because it creates precedent. And usually a bylaw was written because there was an accident, incident, or merit for the bylaw. So allowing an exemption And I can assure you, I've had many requests that, and I have to just push back and say, no, we have a bylaw that says I can't personally, you'd have to go to council to get an exemption. I can't give you an exemption. It's out of my purview. So I did inform this proponent that it would be non-compliant to our bylaw and that I could not approve it. So hence where we are tonight. Reasons maybe to reiterate why this bylaw is important is there's a variety of reasons why we don't want people fouling, encumbering, pushing across roadways. The results are typically frozen drainage passages. So the snowbank will pack up in the ditch, and then the ditch floods, and the guy's field floods out, or the roads get saturated, get weakened. That's one issue. The other issue is the heavy equipment crossing our road back and forth, pushing the snow across. A motor vehicle traffic safety hazard. Another issue is frozen banks where we have our equipment driving by, and there's nothing scarier, according to our plow operators, when the wing of a plow truck hits a frozen snowbank and the truck turns sideways in the road. It is scary, and so that is another potential outcome of allowing people to push snow across the roadway. The other is breaking the equipment. Obviously, nose plow hits a big clump of frozen snow. We can break our equipment. There is also a provision in the Highway Traffic Act that there's a line in the Highway Traffic Act that says that it's not permitted, fouling, encumbering, and pushing snow across roads. So we would not only be against our own bylaw, but we are, in a way, against the Highway Traffic Act. Because we have no bylaw enforcement officer, it seems to be really, I'm getting feedback from our operators, and it is happening a lot this year. So with that, I will leave it to you, Madam Chair, to.
Do any councillors have any questions in regards to this item, either for staff or comments? Councillor Pellerin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I know what you mean about the snowbank getting hard. You can flip a grader, a 360. But the thing, I don't know what they are planning to do. I don't know if they'd have a culvert on the other side, an entrance, and they don't push the snow, they carry it with the big loader. That wouldn't be so bad. You wouldn't freeze the ditch. There's a way you can do it, I think. I don't know what their plans are.
If I can reply through you, Madam Chair. So that is an option. They do have property just to the east. There's a big vacant lot, I think, but there's an increased cost to the developer, and that's, I think, where they're trying to reduce their cost. Right?
Sorry.
So through you, Madam Mayor, and that's basically what I was going to ask. So in the past, is that what they were doing? They were putting it on their vacant land and trucking it out at their own cost? Or do we know?
Right. So I reached out today because that question was asked, and I didn't like the answer. The previous owner would do it during wee hours of the morning where there's nobody on the street. He would be so meticulous that staff never even knew they were doing it. And apparently he did it for 30 years. But he was so good at it that it was never right. So there's.
So is this a new owner?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Other questions? Comments? Councillor Ristul?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I just wanted to say I appreciate the report that was provided and the rationale that was given. And I've always been a policy person. That's my background, and I'd be extremely worried that if we're going to create this one exception, that we're going to have 50 more coming in the next couple of weeks from residents who want to do the same thing. And what's our background going to be to say no to others after we've opened this can of worms with this? So I know we're not at the voting point, but I think we have a policy in place, and for the reasons that were outlined within the staff report, I think it's probably good to leave it as status quo and not start to encourage this kind of activity within the municipality.
Thank you, Councillor Resto. Any other questions or comments? I'll say my piece at this point. I tend to agree with Councillor Ristoul. I'm very much a policy person. I don't like exceptions. And I think not only in this, for this particular item or this particular bylaw, but if we as a council start to set ourselves up where we are granting exemptions on different bylaws and different policies, we're going to spend a lot of our time over the next 4 years dealing with these types of requests when we should be doing things that are really aimed towards the good. If the policy was written for a reason, and if there is an issue with the policy that it no longer addresses the concerns of the bulk of our residents, then that policy should come back to be looked at, and that's the proper way to deal with it. For me, I think that if we have a policy and we set ourselves up as a council that will follow the policies or take the right steps to change the policy, we also support our staff in the work that they do. So I, for one, would not vote in favor for an exemption, but that's my opinion. So if there's no other comments or questions on the item, I will, yes, Councillor Rivard.
Through you, Madam Chair, just to add to that, it just came to my mind that with precedent, at this point, if somebody wished to kind of put as many outbuildings as they wanted on a property and then claim that there's nowhere to put snow on that property, at that point it may pose another, right, it would just come up again. Well, then I'm gonna need to push it across the road, so I guess that's where I sit on that. We don't want to set a bad precedent.
So any other questions or comments? Thank you, Councillor Rivard. Okay, so I am going to put it to a vote. I'll just like to remind you that the resolution is written in the affirmative. So the resolution was read to grant the exception. So an affirmative vote is to grant the exception, and so I'll have Madam Clerk just read it one more time so that we're all clear on the way that we are voting.
Be it resolved that council grants an exemption from the West Nipissing Municipality Bylaw number 2006-63, prohibiting the obstruction, encumbering, or fouling of highways or bridges with snow to multi-domain and its snow removal contract for the 2023 winter season in order to push snow across Goulard Road onto private lands directly across, which location will be used for snowballing and the stockpiling of the snow.
So all in favor of granting the exception? That is defeated. Thank you very much. Okay, so just move on quickly to item 12, and I won't take a lot of time. You know, for my mayor's report this year, this year, second one this year for this meeting. I just like to touch on the fact that as a council and the staff team, we participated in a strategic planning sessions this weekend on Friday and Saturday night. And I just wanted to take the time to thank council and staff for giving up their time on a Friday night and a Saturday night to sit down together. I think it was an extremely positive experience, at least from my perspective. For me, it's so important that if we want to work together to accomplish things over the next 4 years, that we actually have a map to get that done. And all the feedback that we received from each one of our members and from our staff team was excellent. And I think, you know, in a couple months' time, when we have that report ready, it's going to be really positive. I'd also just like to thank Mr. Neil Fox from Economic Partners, Sudbury East, West Nipissing, for his time and coming out to join us to help facilitate those sessions. It was a really excellent time, and I think that it is going to provide us with some good tools to move forward. So thank you very much all for participating. And with that, we will move to item 13, and we will be going into closed session. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipality of West Nipissing, pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act, be it resolved that we proceed into closed meeting as authorized in Section 239 to discuss the following: personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal board or local board employees, regarding an update to a human resources file.
Okay. Questions or comments? Motion? All in favor? Thank you.
I'm going to close off the,
Alex, get it.
Don't miss that.
Oh, we can leave.